In this video, I'll talk about for loops. Now, for loops, or loops in general, allow you to run a certain section of code multiple times. So here's what a for loop looks like. So I type in for I in range, and I'll explain what this stuff means later. Let's say 4. Then the colon, and just like with an if statement, you have the colon, and then whatever is indented underneath the if statement, or underneath the for loop, is the code, basically what we call it being inside the for loop, so that code's inside the for loop, and that's the code we'll run multiple times. So something like this, print I. So now I'm going to run this, and I'll explain to you, it'll help you understand how this works. So you can see we printed out the numbers 0 through 3. And we were printing I. So this is how it works. This is how for loops work. So I starts by taking on a value. Now because we have, when we say range 4, that basically means the numbers 0 to 3. So we start at 0, and we go up to 1 less than the number we put in. 1 less than 4 is 3, of course. So we start at 0. That means I, for this first bit, I equals 0. We print I, so we're printing 0. Now once this code is done, the code indented all the code indented is done, we go right back up here and we check. Does I need to be, is I going to change into another value? Well, yes, it'll be 1 now. So now I is equal to 1, we print 1. Do the same thing. We go back up here, I is going to be 2 now. Then we print I, which is 2. Then we go back, now I is 3. Then we print I, and then after we print I this time, since there's no more values for I to take on, then we would move on with the rest of the code. So we exit the for loop. So something like this. As you can see, after the last number is printed out, the rest of the code will run. You don't always have to use I in your code. You could just do something like this, and this will consequently print hello every single time I changes. So basically, the code runs for every single time I takes on a new value. All the code below will run. So if I were to do this, of course, we'd get hello world 4 times. If I were, just one more example with range, print I, if I change this to 10, we'll get the numbers 0 to 9, as you can see. Another side note, or we'll talk about that later actually. So I mean, yeah, there's not really, okay, I'll talk about what I wanted to talk about now. So I, it doesn't actually have to always be I. You can think of this as like a variable name. This could be the letter N, and this will still work, as you can see. You could change this to a full word, like for number. Yep. And then some other things. This does not, range is a function, and it can be used in for loops, but you do not need to use range in there. Let's keep that. You could do something like this. You can use a list or a string. Just some examples. So for example, if I make a list like that, now what will happen is number will take on each value in the list. So number will first become the integer 1, then we print that, then number becomes integer 2, run the code below, and we keep doing that until we get to the end, and then we stop. Like this. And then if I were to put some different things in here like this, and then maybe a list, as you can see here, number turns into 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it'll turn into hello, and we print hello. Then it will turn into the list, because this is actually an item within the list we entered. So it'll just take the next item, which is this entire list, and print that. So we can do this with strings too. And with strings, it'll take every character. So if I were to do this, it'll print each character. Number will take on the value. Let's change it so it's not as confusing. N will take on the value of each letter one by one, and then run the code below for each time it changes values until it's done. Of course. One last thing to note, the range function can take in multiple inputs, not just one. So I previously showed you single input right here. Now if we put in more inputs, so if I put in an extra input, when there's two inputs like this, the first input is the starting point. So we've been starting at 0 previously, but now 1 is the starting point, and we still end at 1 less than the second number, so we're going to end at 4. As you can see, 1 through 4. This starting number can be -2, I believe, so this will start at -1 and go to 4. And then let's just do this. This should go, yeah, just only 4. Starts at 4 and ends at 4. And then if we were to add a third number, like this, when there are 3 numbers, the first one is still the starting point. Second one is still one higher than the ending point. And the third number now is how much we're counting by, so how much we're skipping by. So basically we're going to start at 1, and then we, instead of going by, you'll notice before we were going 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we go 1, then we skip by 2, not 1, so we get to 3. And then obviously 5 is bigger than our maximum 4, so we're not going to get to it. If I were to change to 6, now our maximum limit is 1 less than 6 is 5. Now we'll get to 5. 1, 3, 5. And if this doesn't actually have to be like that, you can actually make it backwards. So in this case, we should start at 5, end at 0, and we're going backwards. Oh, it looks like I was wrong. So start at 5 and we end at 1 higher, because we're going backwards. Okay. So that's how the range function works. And maybe if I were to just run some other code, let's run it like this. I'll show you guys an example of using this besides just printing. So if we have a variable a is equal to 0, 5, then we'll do a plus or equals a plus I, print a. Or let's do it like this. So you'll notice what happens if I were to print a every single time we add to it. It starts at 0, we add 1, then we add 2, then we add 3, then we add 4. So that's just a more practical example of, using how you might use for loops in your code. And that's it for this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, as well as leaving feedback in the comment section. And thank you for watching.